Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
The truth is out there. What happened in July of 1952 on two separate occasions? Banner headline stories about strange lights that were seen around the Washington area. The President of the United States at the time, Harry Truman, was calling up the military to say, what the heck is going on? There are reports that F-94 jets that were scrambled to the scene couldn't keep up with the lights as they jetted away at speeds in excess of 1,000 miles an hour. Now, what was going on? We thought we might have, on the 60th anniversary of those sightings around Washington, we thought we'd have a little fun and sort of see what we can find out about this. We have on the line Dr. Kevin Randle, who is a former lieutenant colonel with the United States Air Force. He's a U.S. Air Force retired, said to be one of the most authoritative experts in the country on UFOs. He's written many books about it, including books about the Roswell crash. Kevin Randle, thanks for joining us here with Brian and Brian.
Well, thank you very much, but can I make one slight correction?
Sure, you may.
I served in the Air Force for a while, but I'm a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army.
Okay, excuse me then. I didn't know that. I'm just reading what I found about you on the internet. Okay, let's talk about July of 1952. There had been sightings around the country prior to this, but on there were two events, one on the 19th and 20th, and then there was another event that occurred about a week later on the 26th to 27th. What do we know about these incidents?
These were sightings that began with radar in the Washington D.C. area at what was then the Washington National Airport. The radar operators are watching these blips on the screen flying around. They then began contacting some of the airliner pilots in the area and asking them if they could see the lights, and they said yes, they could. So at one point we had radars at three separate locations displaying the lights, and we had visual sightings from airline pilots, and then later on some sightings from people on the ground. So it's
now, as these UFO sightings go, that's pretty authoritative evidence, wouldn't you say?
When you get instrumentality involved in it, absolutely, because especially when you have it on three separate radar sets, and the reason that's important is because the Air Force explained the sightings as temperature inversions, meaning that there wasn't really anything there. The radar beams were bent, were picking up things on the ground, but when you have it on three separate radars showing the same thing, then you realize it's not a temperature inversion, it's something else going on.
Was there anything reported other than lights? I mean, did they actually see a ship or some kind of structure?
Mainly it's just kind of lights in the sky, but at one point one of the fighter pilots said that he was surrounded by them. Though once the things got into the area, they surrounded his craft, and according to Major Dewey Fournay, who was in the radar rooms at the time observing this, said it got pretty hairy. The other thing that was interesting is on a number of occasions when the fighters showed up, all the objects on the radars disappeared.
They scrambled away, right?
They disappeared, and once the fighters were gone, then the objects reappeared, which again is not suggestive of something that would be a weather-related phenomenon.
All right, now President Truman is seeing these banner headlines. So there are even some reports that these lights were seen over the White House at one point. But he sees these banner headlines. He calls up the military. He's got some questions.
He wants to know what's going on. And these sightings in Washington actually produced what I think of the world's greatest banner headline from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, which said, "Saucers swarm over Capitol." I mean, this is something from a science fiction movie. So, of course, the president's interested in what's going on. He wants to know what is invading our airspace, especially over the Capitol.
As you look at these incidents over time, I mean, some we turn out to be not credible. Others that we have sort of open questions about. How do you rate this one?
This one is unidentified. The Air Force wrote it off as weather-related phenomenon, but when you count the number of people who are involved, the number of radars involved, the number of pilots involved, both commercial and military, you don't have a good solution for this. The Air Force had, at that time, it was the largest press conference held since the end of the Second World War to discuss this with the press. Mm-hmm. And during that conference, you could see the Air Force dodging the questions. You read the transcripts, which are available. In fact, in the book, they're available. And you can see how the Air Force is not answering the questions the reporters are asking. They're trying to lead it away from the idea it's something anomalous.
Is it possible that a weather phenomenon could do this? Is it possible that an inversion could actually, have lights, for people to see in the sky? I mean, is that a plausible possibility for something of this nature?
Temperature inversions do not create lights in the sky. They can bend radar waves, and that will give you an anomalous detection on the scope. But the radar operator said they were well familiar with the weather phenomena. It was nothing like that. And then when you plug in the sightings, the objects, the lights in the sky, then no, weather phenomena is not a viable explanation for it.
Now, that was 60 years ago. On the 50th anniversary of this event, at about this time of year, there was another UFO sighting in the nation's capital. And I know about this because I actually reported on it when I worked over at the Fox News Channel. Do you know anything about the 2002 incident?
No, I do not.
Well, apparently, if you want to go to the web, and just Google Brian Wilson UFO, I kid you not, there is a complete transcript of what I reported on the Fox report. But basically, NORAD scrambled, and I confirmed this, 2 F-16 jets because they had some unidentified things on radar
over the Chesapeake Bay, though, right?
Well, it was over, and there were some people independently of this who said they saw something over Waldorf. So, take that for what it's worth. But I found it very interesting that it was about 50 years to the date of those original sightings.
Well, there were sightings in 1952. There were sightings all over the country. It was a massive wave.
Yeah, it really was.
Project Blue Book. According to Ed Ruppelt, who was the chief of Blue Book at the time, was saying that at the beginning of the year they would get an envelope of clippings from around the country from newspapers, and by the end of July they were getting them in shoe boxes on a daily basis. So there were literally hundreds of sightings. I think Blue Book logged 1,500, and of those, 303 were unidentified. So they didn't have a good solution for the sightings. So there was a massive wave of sightings, not only over the Capitol, but over the entire United States.
All right. Well, Dr. Kevin Randle, I appreciate you coming here on the Brian and Brian Show to talk about this.
It's fascinating stuff. We appreciate it.
And I'm going to Google you and see what this says.
Well, you will be fascinated. There's a complete transcript, and I think you'll get a chuckle out of it. It is interesting.
Okay.
Well, what do you think, Brian? Are you a believer?
Well, it's curious. I mean, if it were seen all over the United States, and I would love to know, was there panic in Washington, D.C. in
I think there
1952?
was real panic around the country because these were being reported everywhere. There were literally, as he said, sightings all over the country at about this time. And so people were, I guess, on guard and watching for it. But there was a report that a WRC, a guy who worked, an engineer for WRC, saw these things. I mean, they were seen by many, many